Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Kim Korte. She is a sensory perception and emotion management strategist, author of Yucky, Yummy, Savory, Sweet. Welcome to the show, Kim.
Thank you so much. And just for the record, the second title, it's the full title is Yucky, Yummy, Savory, Sweet, Understanding the Flavors of Emotions.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll certainly talk about that book. But first, Kim, let us understand who exactly is Kim Korte, so that our audience can understand who they are listening to. What have a bit about your journey, so that they can understand about you better.
Sure. Yeah, and thanks for this opportunity. I'm just like everybody else, had some major, well, not, I don't know if everyone's had major struggles like mine, but everybody's had struggles. And I had a series of what I call emotional earthquakes because I live in California. It's easy to relate to earthquakes, but after the last one, which was my divorce, I was just like, I can't take this anymore. I've got to figure this out. And I have a project management background. So I was looking at myself as a project and trying to figure out my emotions and how I could be better at them and how I could keep things from happening to me. And I didn't find the answer to how I could keep things from happening to me. But what I did discover was I can change my reactions and behaviors and thoughts. And then in this journey, when I read this book called How Emotions Are Made, The Secret Life of the Brain, which discusses the theory of constructed emotions, this was when my whole life changed, and it took me on a different trajectory, which ultimately led to this book.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as we today we are talking about decoding your emotions. So in this backdrop, I want to understand a bit more about this emotions. Means, do we have to decode our emotions in our day-to-day life? Our emotions are something natural. We act according to that. We react according to that. Or are there so many emotions hidden within us that we need to decode and understand? Why do we need to decode our emotions, Kim? Help us understand this whole concept about emotions. Is it natural, or is it something much more deeper that we need to understand about our own emotions?
I would say it's both. So emotions are as natural as seeing or hearing or anything else. It's a product of the brain. So when you think about sight, for instance, we don't see with our eyes, we receive light signals. And it's those light signals that the brain uses to determine what it is we see. So we see with our brain, just like we hear with our brain, we smell with our brain. All of our sensory inputs that we have are a product, our responses are a product of the brain. And the same is true of our feelings. And feelings come in what I say are two flavors. We have the feelings that are produced when we are hungry or when we're thirsty. Those are what we call homeostatic emotions. And then we have affective emotions, which are happy or sad. And those two are a product of sensory input coming from the outside world and our inside world that the brain says, well, what do I do with this? So what does the brain use? Prior learning, call it memory, call it experience, call it just plain old learning, what you were taught in school. The thing that happens is that it just becomes automatic, right? We just automatically respond to situations. We don't think about them. And that's what I call as our recipes in our head. So we respond to emotional situations based on sensory input coming in. And so we can kind of remix those recipes, if you want to call it that, so that we can change our responses in the future. Because how we're responding is based on history. And does it make sense for us to respond that way today? And that's when what you're calling is decoding kind of comes into play, where we can be a little bit more observant of our perceptions and what's going on around us and think, wow, like why am I responding this way? It's really a self-awareness tool that the book provides, and it's a way for us to use food as a way to create analogies to help us to connect to these emotions. So many of us, and I'm including myself here, disconnected from emotion, from that feeling, just like we can ignore being hungry, we can ignore our emotions, and they're really there to tell us something. And it might not be truth. Feelings aren't facts, they just feel that way.
Right, right. You talked about, how we understand and react to our emotions. If you can give any day-to-day example, how we always try and, take out something from the past and then we try and decode our emotions so that we can understand it a bit better.
Sure. So it's so unique, right, to everybody. So all I can do is kind of uh, say what like my experiences would be. So in certain moments, I might, when someone is coming across as critical of me, I could take it that as I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm this, some negative aspect, when actually it was not saying that I was negative. It was saying, hey, these are some things you might want to improve on. And that's me assuming their intention. And so when I look at and can stop and just listen to what they say and take their words and say, well, could this be true? And be curious about what they're saying, that's when I have an opportunity to go, wait, I'm responding in a way that has nothing to do with what they're saying. This is really more about how I feel about myself. And then I can adjust not only how I feel about myself, but also my response to someone.
Wonderful, wonderful. You have explained that quite well, Kim.
Oh,
Now,
thank
in
you.
terms of, in terms of our brain and emotions, what's the relationship? Can the brain understand our emotions wrongly, incorrectly, or is it always correct? Because if we get hurt, brain understands it's fine. But about feelings, brain can, how does it work with the brain, emotions and brain? Do they go together, or do they look at things very differently?
So, it's the brain is super complex. And I'm saying something here that, and I'm not a brain expert, but I have read a lot. And so I'm never purporting to be an expert, but I can say this, which has been very consistent in what I've read, is that our brain really serves as a prediction machine. And this may not sound right, but have you ever, let me go back. My husband was watching TV in the living room. I was sick. And so I was in bed, which is, we share a wall. So I could hear him watching the TV, and it was on a delay from my laptop, which was watching the exact same show. He couldn't tell that he was living in a delayed sound. And we're constantly living in a delay because our brain is predicting, like I said, everything we see. So I'm sure everyone's had the experience where you've seen some person and you thought it was your friend Joe, and then you're like, Joe, and you look again, it's not Joe. And this is because your brain made a prediction error. And we could have lived with that prediction thinking it was Joe, and maybe Joe was with someone who wasn't his wife with his arm around her. And so you would go, oh, Joe is cheating on Susie, when actually it wasn't even Joe. So the brain didn't have that opportunity because we didn't look harder to find that prediction error. The same happens with our emotions. It's predicting. And it's only when we are conscious of, or more conscious and more aware of what's going on around us, that we can be more in tune with where prediction errors might lie, and also questioning ourselves. But we have to understand our brain is really responding and communicating and just informing us. Just like we don't always feel our heart beating, we don't always feel our stomach growling. It's only when the brain thinks we need to notice something. So I hope that answers your question. But yes, the brain can get it wrong. And really, it's up to us to help it to correct its prediction errors.
Absolutely. Well explained once again, Kim. here.
Thank you.
Now let's understand it better through your book, Yucky, Yummy, Savory Street, Understanding the Flavor of Emotions. What this book is all about, it talks about flavor of emotions. Help us understand. I like the title of this book. Help us. How did you think of it and what this book is all about? Who this book is for?
This book is using food analogies. So if you think of what flavor is, it's not a sensory system like all of the other senses. It's a combination of sensory systems. What you see can impact your reaction to food. The music going on around you can impact it, especially your sense of smell. So many people learned that during COVID, right? If you can't smell it, you can't even taste. But all of our senses in texture, I'll say that too. Like I used to hate oysters because of the texture. So, when we experience flavor, it's multiple sensory systems, and the same is true of our emotions. It's a product of multiple sensory systems. And our ability to capture flavors, so there's a sensory system, and that's what communicates to us our feelings. But when we're able to taste our emotions, much like a chef, it can be different from us. Like we may taste something and go, oh, that's good. But a chef has trained its sensory systems so that it can taste something and detect all the different flavors. And when we're able to break down our emotions, quote unquote, into different flavors, then we are better able to respond to them, recognize them, and distinguish them from other emotions, such as, am I angry or am I getting sick? Because both can appear in the stomach.
Right, right, Kim. So this is a difficult subject to deal. How have you dealt with this whole subject, and what can people learn out of this book of yours?
Well, one thing for sure is how to reconnect to the feeling of feeling. Because interoception, this if it's easily mistaken for interception, but it's how we catch our feelings in our body. And so many people have numbed it and don't really connect to those feelings, or they start to feel something and they automatically just shut down, like, no, I don't want to do this. And this is a way in this book of easing you into feeling them by helping you to connect just to the system itself, by noticing smells, by noticing what you taste, by trying to distinguish flavors, and then transferring that to emotional situations and being able to recognize a feeling as it comes up, so that you start to go, wait, okay, I have this feeling, so I need to really look at this situation. What is really going on? And being able to take in what I call more ingredients, our perceptions, whether it be from inside or the outside world, to notice them in more detail, much like a chef will be able to use more ingredients to cook. Because after all, like, I believe you're in India, so how many recipes have curry, right? But you have different kinds of curry, and you have coconut milk, but they're not in every recipe, but they're in a lot, but they're still all different recipes, right? So it's being able to distinguish that in your emotions. And this is why food analogies are so helpful.
Wonderful, wonderful. And who this book is for? Who can use this book to learn whatever they need to learn? Because everyone has emotions, but can everyone use this book?
Well, I of course I would think that, but I really feel strongly like it's for people who are a little bit more fearful of their emotions, because fears, the majority of fears and anxiety are imagined and not real. And so if you get comfortable with that, then you can get comfortable with your emotions. So I would say people who are a little fearful of emotions and don't understand them, and just people who are curious to learn a little bit more about how the brain works and how it works with our perceptions and how we construct our emotions, much like a chef constructs a recipe. So I think it's helpful too, especially in the business world, to be able to have that recognition and to be able to pivot from situations, only because you're dealing with so many personalities. But really, it's helpful for any relationship, because if you can connect to your own emotions, you're better able to connect with other people, because it's just how we work, right? Like if you're not connected to yourself, it's a really lonely place, and you find yourself having a hard time connecting with other people. So it's really fostering to help foster relationships. So if your
Right.
relationship challenged, it could be helpful.
Right. So those people who have, shut down some emotions, or, do not let them come up, can they have a build a healthy relationship with those sort of emotions? Or is it very easy or very difficult?
So level of difficulty, I can't speak to, because each person is so individual, right? Like, and I don't know their situation, but I we have the tools. There's so much out there right now on in the world of interoceptive awareness and developing it. I have an autistic niece, and autism is, especially in the neurodivergent people who are challenged in that way, is work being done by a occupational therapist called Kelly Mailer, and it's helping the neurodiverse to connect to their feelings inside, to these signals. So I look at it as, if a neurodiverse person can help build this connection, then really we all have some level of capability. Some of us are capable of doing more than others, but I believe everybody has an opportunity for improvement, including myself, to be honest. I'm always working on it.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is so much to learn about ourselves and our emotions, and I'm sure all this episode and a lot of things that you said during this episode, your book can help a lot of people understand these things better. So, for those who want to know more about you, more from your book, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
My website, kimkorte.com. That's probably the very best place to go. I offer a free, like, preview of the book. If you sign up for it, it's the introduction and the first chapter. The first chapter is called Opus One, Two Buck Chuck and the Wine Snob. That's about two different brands of wine, a real expensive one and a real cheap one, and how our predictive brain can get even taste wrong.
Wonderful, wonderful. I like the name of this first chapter, and I'm sure a lot of other chapters will be very delicious, like this one. And
Thank you.
and when emotions become delicious, it can certainly be a very, very wonderful life. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure. You're a great host. I appreciate you.